listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you're having a good day. So far, we are, I think.
Yes, we are.
I am being closely monitored, supervised.
Yes, he is. And hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Making sure I stay on track and all that good stuff. Like she thinks she can keep me on track. Yes, we like to have fun. Life is far too short to be miserable all the time, as much as some people enjoy doing that. If you do hear and you like what you hear, please hit those share buttons and like buttons. I noticed this morning, I don't spend a great deal of time on social media, but one of the social media platforms I'm on has made the decision, and it's okay, that they don't let people post pictures unless they pay for that particular platform. So if you're used to getting your notifications on that, don't look for the picture because I'm not paying for the platform. It's just that simple. That's another reason you might want to hit those notification buttons, because it will keep you from being interrupted if you like what you hear. Don't forget the books are available out there. More on that in a little bit. If I remember. Way too often, I get questions about particular Bible verses. I could tell from the question that some people have allowed their traditions or their denominational doctrine to influence the way that they read their Bible. Instead of, as Myra says, just read the words, they're attempting to place certain concepts, certain ideas into places where they might not belong. And it causes people to get their exercise. They like to jump to conclusions. Sometimes it's the right conclusion, but more often it's the wrong conclusion. Okay? I'm just saying. So we're going to look at some of the most popular verses that cause people to jump to the wrong conclusion. And these are verses I get a lot of questions about for some reason. We're going to start with something that should be really easy, but might take some discussion.
Now at the return of the year, in the spring, at the time when kings go to war, David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the sons of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David stayed at Jerusalem. Now when evening came, David arose from his bed and walked around on the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful in appearance. 2 Samuel 11, verses 1 and 2.
Yes, this is where David gets in trouble. A lot of trouble. And I know what most people in the United States have a picture of when they read this. A picture flashes in their minds of a naked woman sitting in a bathtub. Guys, I get it. Okay? It's because of the way we read. The trouble is, even with that particular translation, that the word bathing doesn't necessarily mean you have to sit in a tub of water. That's often a different word, actually. The Hebrew word rachetz is used here, not the word mikvah. Strong's number, Hebrew 7364, if you're keeping score. And it is defined as to wash or to wash off. Sometimes it's translated as bathe. So let's put this into some context. It was sometime apparently after dark. David comes out. He can't, he's restless, whatever, can't sleep, doesn't see the need to just lay there and toss and turn. So he gets out of bed. He goes up to the roof of his house. Now, David being king had people in the house. He had servants. He had other people, doing things that they do. Chances are he was not by himself. He's looking around, gazing around the place around where he lives, and he sees, probably through a window, what he considers to be a very beautiful woman washing. There's no indication she was in a tub filled with water, and most likely she wasn't, okay? There were no bathrooms in the homes of the Hebrew people at the time of David. Does that make sense? Okay. Often, if you wanted to actually immerse yourself and take a bath, you would go down to a river or a stream or a pool of water, and you would actually wash. Bathtubs were not something you would find in every home. Not every place had a tub that could be filled with water. You basically didn't have running water. You had to carry water. So, are you starting to get a different picture here? What was Bathsheba doing? Well, more than likely, she was standing at a washstand with a basin of water, washing her face, getting ready for bed. David more than likely saw her through a window. The reality is, if she hadn't been actually getting herself really cleaned up just for bed, if she'd actually been in a situation where she was getting more than just washing her face, she probably would have had some type of servant attending to her that would have made certain that she wasn't seen, right? You got to remember who Bathsheba is. She's the wife of Uriah, who is obviously an important person because his home was very close to the place where the king lived. Most likely she would have had servants. It's the way the culture was back then. If you were important, you lived closer to the king. Make sense? Uriah was obviously fairly important. He lived fairly close to David's house. Close enough where David could see Uriah's wife. And remember, it was after dark. She was probably getting cleaned up by the light of a lamp or a candle. They don't give off a lot of light. How David could tell, well, she's really cute. I don't know. Maybe he had really good eyesight. But think about this. Now, if she had been actually naked, would David continue to watch like some peeping Tom pervert? After all, he's king. He probably had people up there with him attending to his needs. What would they think? It's in that particular culture at that time, that just wasn't done. Bathsheba, more than likely, washing her face, getting ready for bed. David sees her through a window. Now, I am not condoning the things David did to cause that turn of events. I just want you to realize that we've jumped to conclusions thinking David was watching some naked woman sitting in a bubble bath, with soft lights and mood music on the radio. That's not what happened. Bathsheba's husband was off to war. She was left as the head of the house while he was away. Now, was this a good combination of events for David to get entangled with? Absolutely not. All right. But it could have just as easily happened if he'd seen her walking down the street, right? Or if he'd seen her doing any number of things. But what he happened to see, what's recorded, is that he's seen her getting ready for bed. All right, she's getting cleaned up, been a long day, and she just wants to wash her face and go to sleep. Something people do probably every night. Now, men, I'm going to warn you first. Don't be tempted. You know, if you see a beautiful woman, you go, wow, she's really cute. Don't think just because David gets away with it that you're going to get away with it. All right, it's not going to happen. Ladies, I can tell you from experience, just because you're going about your everyday lives, don't think you go unnoticed. You, after all, when Myra and I met, she was managing a small convenience store. And she's sitting there smiling at me. Yeah, and it's no different than when people notice each other everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're in church, in the marketplace, in the grocery store. It doesn't matter. People are watching. And how you present yourself is how they see you. Bathsheba was innocently washing herself. Hopefully something she did about every day. Yeah, I get it. How people see you is important because your life, the way you live your life, is actually the best witness for your faith. It's that simple. This doesn't have to be a story strictly about sex. This is a story, I shouldn't say it that way. This is a lesson about perception. It's a lesson about adultery. It's a lesson about sin, and probably hundreds other more things that we could find to look at in that passage. Now we're going to stick with David here, and we're going to go, we're going to backflash a little bit in David's life. And if you want to read that next passage.
And David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail on account of him. Your servant will go and fight with his Philistines." Then Saul said to David, "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, while he has been a warrior from his youth." 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 32 and 33.
All right, let's stop here and really think. How many times have you seen these little cartoon drawings of David as a 8, 10, 12-year-old kid with a little Dennis the Menace slingshot, the little fork stick and the rubber? How many times have you seen that? When Saul says, "David, you're too young. You're inexperienced. You don't have any idea what you're doing." Goliath has been training all his life. We get the picture in our minds that David, for some reason, is a child. Maybe we should keep reading.
But David said to Saul, "Your servant was shepherding his father's sheep, and a lion and a bear would come and take a lamb from the flock, and I would go out after it and strike it and rescue the lamb from its mouth. Then it rose up against me, and I would seize it by its beard and strike it down and put it to death. Your servant has struck down both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, since he has reproached the battle lines of the living God." And David said, "Jehovah, who delivered me from the hand of the lion and from the hand of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and may Jehovah be with you." 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 34 through 37.
Saul's king of Israel. Would Saul send a 12-year-old child into battle? I hope not. I hope he had a little more on the ball than that. David was full grown, very young, but completely fully grown, probably 18 to 20 years old, speculating, but somewhere in that area. He's not yet battle tested, as far as war, but he's old enough, he killed a lion, he killed a bear while he was out by himself working as a shepherd. Do you send a young child out by himself in the wilderness where there are bears, where there are lions? I hope Jesse had a little more on the ball than that too, right? The cartoons, the songs, that kid's song, "Only a Boy Named David, Only a Little Sling," it puts the idea in our head. And if you're familiar with the old Dennis the Menace cartoons or TV show, here's this little kid running around with his fork stick and a little inner tube thing. That's not who David was at this point in time. So are you beginning to see how jumping to the wrong conclusions can jeopardize your understanding of the Bible? I hope so. Because now we're going to get into something a little more controversial, maybe. Who am I to stir up controversy? Yeah, I do it all the time, apparently. And this is specifically for our Christian listeners. But our Jewish listeners and our Muslim listeners can get a lot from this as well. Listen to this carefully, because I know what holiday's getting ready to show up here next on the calendar. Many of you may be planning to go to a sunrise service, but listen very carefully to this passage.
Now on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came early to the tomb, while it was still dark, and saw the stone already taken away from the tomb. So she ran and came to Simon Peter and to the other disciples whom Jesus loved, and said to them, "They have taken away the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him." John chapter 20, verses 1 and 2.
Here we go. First day of the week, Mary goes. And, there's another lesson there. But that's for another time. It was early on the first day of the week. It was still dark. First century Hebrew people were still tracking time as they had done for about 4,000 years at that time. The day begins at sundown. Early on the first day would be when? Sometime after the sun goes down. Uh-oh. We have a problem here, Houston. Not near sunrise, early on the first day. The Jewish people in the first century didn't track time like the Romans did. Days didn't start at midnight. They started at sundown, so early in the first day, just after dark on the first day of the week. We have to also remember the culture. The followers of Yeshua, the followers of Jesus, thought they were going to be next. They were terrified. They were trying to stay out of sight, so they wouldn't be running around in daylight. Right? What happens next? It's still in the dark. Mary runs back. Then they all come back. Mary stays behind. She goes to the tomb, and it's recorded that she encounters this person, not knowing who this person is. She's distraught. She's upset. She's crying uncontrollably. Have you ever tried to get the attention of a person who is like that? Because I have had a lot of pastors who have said, and Jesus spoke her name, Mary, very softly, very calmly, very comfortingly. That's not how you get somebody to look at you, to listen to you, to figure out that you have something important to tell them. He would not have said, Mary. He would have spoken her name very sharply. Mary. He gets her attention. And then she realizes who she's talking to. All of this happens in the dark. Sometime shortly after sundown. You know, the entire series of events that's recorded there all happen sometime on what we would consider a Saturday evening, Saturday night. Unfortunately, our modern sunrise service fails to consider that fact. So probably millions of Christians will wake up on Easter Sunday morning and go to a sunrise service, thinking, because of tradition, that, you know, they're at sunrise service when, you know, Jesus arose, right? Well, the modern Christian church, in reality, you know, if they really wanted to portray this accurately, they'd have a Saturday night service. But that kind of interferes with Good Friday to Easter Sunday, doesn't it? Well, that's a lesson for another time, too, unless, of course, you want to read Tradition to Truth. And that's all laid out there for you in great detail. Jumping to the wrong conclusion because we fail to understand the culture, we fail to understand the Creator's calendar as He designed it, and that causes other issues as well. Churches today are in turmoil because people are walking away. And do you realize that the number one reason that causes people to either switch churches, they go somewhere else, they might change denomination, or just stop going altogether, isn't because they're not being entertained. It isn't because they're not hearing the truth, even though most of the time they're not. The number one reason is because of confusion. They're confused because of the difference between what the modern church teaches and what they're able to read in the Bible. They see a big difference. You know, we no longer live in a time when we have limited access to information. And I'm thankful for that. I really am. I'm thankful that people are waking up to the truth that's in the Bible, and they're waking up to the lies we have inherited from our fathers. More on that in Inheriting Lies, my third book, if you are interested. Believers across the spectrum, doesn't matter what religion you are, doesn't matter what denomination you are, you need to stop getting your exercise by jumping to conclusions, especially the wrong conclusions. You know, every year, hundreds of people around the world are severely injured or killed because they look at a pool of water and they say, of course it's deep enough for me to dive into that. And they dive in and become injured. They literally jump to the wrong conclusion. Don't be like them. Don't injure yourself jumping to the wrong conclusions. All of the information that we need to understand the Bible is in the Bible itself. The truth is in the words that have already been spoken. If you're willing to either read just the words that are there, or at least listen to them. You know, there's Bible and audiobooks. There's all these things that you can hear. And sometimes, depending on who's doing the reading and what translation they're reading from, you hear things for the first time. Because when you're listening to somebody, you're not automatically trying to interject what you think it should say into it. And that is very, very difficult to overcome when you're reading it, because you just know what it should say. You know what it's supposed to say. But when you actually read the words, sometimes you get surprised. And it's just not there. Bathsheba probably was not naked in a bathtub. Chances are she didn't have a bathtub in her house. David was not a child when he killed Goliath. And no, Yeshua, Jesus did not raise at sunrise on Sunday morning. Stop jumping to the wrong conclusions. Read what's there. Understand what's there. And like I think I said this the last time, the chances are that one of the reasons people listen to things like this is because they're searching for truth. They want to know what really happened. They want to know the facts. And hopefully now you know at least 3. So, until Thursday, we wish you many, many blessings, everyone.
Yes, we do.